Now we're live.
Hello, Terry. I see you out there, my brother.
Yes, finally. Technology. Oh my God. I normally have a bullet point list to remind my old and feeble brain of what to say. My daughter is feverishly pulling it up at this very moment, and this is what is known as stalling. Stretching it. We want to welcome you to the Whine No Whine Show. I'm your host, Joe Orsak. This is the coolest hour you're going to have on Facebook. I'm just telling you that right now. Look, America, we have a problem. You know what I'm talking about. I call it the zero to Nazi effect. That's in any given argument. The length of time it takes to go from zero to you're a Nazi, I'm going to punch in the face and go outside and burn your car down. That's just how it rolls. Well, we got a solution. It's called wine. And hanging out together. Breaking bread. Enjoying good conversation together as friends. Right? That's what's going to happen on the show today. Right? I totally forgot to draw a name, so we're not going to give away a prize today.
Your employees are right outside.
It just happened. I will pick Ashley Orsak as the winner of today's prize. Rock, paper, scissors. We're going to be drinking some great wine on the show today. This is a wine from France on the Mediterranean Sea. It's called Pont de Fuite.
What?
Yes.
Help me,
Pont de Fuite. Really interesting wine. I'm really looking forward to drinking it because it's supposed to be a very complex flavor wine. 2016 wine. It was a very difficult year. That was a drought in France, but the grapes that survived were a very robust flavor. They aged it in an oak barrel, further complexing the wine. And this is kind of a geeky wine thing. They let it age a little longer with what is called the lees, which is just the leftover fermented yeast in the wine. That's left over in the bottom of the wine vat, right? So that added even further complexity to the flavor of the wine. We're supposed to look forward to flavors of mango, melon, and just a little hint of lemon. All right, so just a little hint of lemon. And it's supposed to be really good with like a Caesar salad. Or a pasta with a light cream sauce.
All right, I'm
so
hungry now.
yeah, so I'm really looking forward to drinking this wine. Today we're going to be talking about a real fun subject. Real fun subject.
Which is why he spent so much time on the wine.
Right. You might want to pour yourself a glass of wine. If you've got something at home right now, break it out. Get a glass. We're going to be talking about whether marriage is a dying institution. Is it going away? Is it just no longer in vogue? Sorry.
We got it on camera.
Yes.
Where's my boots? Where's my boots when I need my boots?
Yes. Yeah, I would have put them on after that. So, anyway, is marriage going away? What do you guys think? Comment in the feed. You're as much a part of this show as the panelists on the show. We're going to bust out those comments. We're going to bring you into the conversation. So where this goes is kind of up to you guys because we're going to react to what you're thinking and what you've got to talk about. So I'm giving my guest a prep time here. I always like to start off with a little bullet point. Where are you at on this? Is it going away? Is it sticking around? Give me a 1 minute. 1 minute, Steve. 1 minute.
I paid him off, so
bullet point thought on where you're at on this. I'm going to start pouring the glass of wine, and we always like to get, before we do the where you're at on this, shameless plugs, right? So I'll give everybody an opportunity to promote something, brag about something, whatever you got going on. Give it a shout out. Let us know who you are, and we'll start with Steve on that. And then when we come back to the bullet point ideas, I'm going to come to you, Chris.
Perfect.
All right, so I'm going to start pouring the wine. Steve, you're up.
All right, well, my name is Steve Williams, and I guess I'm one of the original grape heads.
True story.
Doing it it's a true story. My shout out today is going to be for the group of conservative folks that I know that I hang out with politically. They're having another weekend where they're going down to Woodsboro, Texas.
Oh, boy.
They were extremely affected by the storm back in August, and they're specifically going out there to help veterans. So people like Lon Davis, Walter West, both these people I've known for quite a long time, and they're going down there to volunteer their time and their efforts to give veterans a help. So that's where they're heading this weekend. That's my shout out.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
I probably should have poured this much for you, Chris.
Just give me the rest of it.
Chris does not drink wine.
Really?
This
So
is the first white
at the
wine
end of the
I've had in a
show,
long
we were
time.
gonna rate the wine, and I always post a picture up on Instagram with the rating of the wine. So make sure you follow us on on Instagram. Make sure you follow us on Instagram because I do post unique stuff up there. So if you're into wine and you enjoy wine, I'll post what the wine is and what the rating was at the end of the show on Instagram. So anyway, when you see Chris's like one grape, just know he doesn't drink wine. I make him.
That was the first time I've ever
It's peer
smelled it.
pressure.
No, I tried to spin it for the first time.
Oh, okay, all
Weird,
right.
but,
Getting it into advanced moves over here
It
now.
looks like he knows what he's
I
doing.
think you
It's
got
good.
it right. You got the wrist in it.
I got the-
I think you've
Got a
already got it
little
right.
practice.
You're good.
I think that was aimed
You
at
look like a
Steve.
pro.
Take him. Time him. Time him. Time him.
Ashley Bradley said, "Time him." Ashley doesn't know how bad you're a lot better than I am. That's for sure. By the way, I'm David
Yeah, that's a
Pipkin.
fact.
That it is true. I'm David Pipkin. I am not a conservative. I'm a constitutionist. I'm really glad to be sitting next to my good buddy Steve here. So
They got a shot for that.
They got a shot for that. Shameless plug.
My shameless plug. First of all, this is my lone appearance in the month of October, so I'm my hashtag pumpkin spice today. I'm rocking the October look.
Too much
Everything
sex.
pumpkin spice is good.
wow,
so that's all good. Okay, don't be
It-
biased.
Sorry.
on the panel
It
here.
is good.
I also
Sorry.
want to do a shameless plug. Hashtag shameless plug. I'm performing tonight at Casa Nueva Mexican Restaurant. Almost live music, 7 o'clock to whenever. It's supposed to be 10:30, but we never finish on time. Of course, we rarely start on time too. And
wonder why.
I have to mention that I work for the best custom builder in the city of Houston. I'll give you guys a little preview. We are again an award-winning custom builder. I just got word on that, and I'll share more with you about that in the next 30 days or so because we
Very
haven't
cool.
officially announced it yet. But that's Scott Thomas Holmes, again, David Pipkin.
All right. Stephanie, shameless plug.
I am Stephanie Pitts. I am a visual artist. I'm in Studio 13 at Jomar Visions. And that was it. My shameless plug is, I'm sure you're going to talk about it too,
Probably.
our upcoming show tomorrow, if you want
It
to
actually
go
comes
into
full
that.
swing to this. I will, yeah. I'm having a silent auction for Wounded Warriors tomorrow.
Fantastic.
Connected with the Wounded Warrior Project, and they're sponsoring our auction, and then we actually have a whole nother side that's going to be devoted to horror art. The show is
Horror.
Honor and
Horror art.
Horror!
Facebook, don't shut us off, Facebook.
Enunciate.
Horror.
The wine! I can't give me wine and show me.
Yeah, have a whole dedication to horror
Oh,
art.
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
that's it.
drink
You're
this
cut
stuff.
off.
All right, geez.
My daughter may be watching this.
It's a whole show about horror art.
It's called Honor and Horror. So I have the silent auction. We also have improv. We got
I did an homage to
bunch of cool
Madonna.
stuff. But it's at Jomar.
You're in a perfect condition to talk about marriage.
Y'all are
Man.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Sorry, Chris.
You okay?
He's trying to be serious. He's talking
No.
about, like,
don't
wounded
wanna be
warriors.
serious.
Did you finish yours?
Yeah, mine was like 5
ribbing.
seconds.
Okay, yeah.
Ribbing.
Short, sweet.
Just,
Yeah.
But that also
Just
comes
slap
back
me.
full circle that I host the Thursday edition of
Yes!
the Wine No Wine Show with
Yes!
my buddy Harley, Tech Text Music and
Who's
Art.
behind the camera today?
And he did a
Yes.
great job yesterday. First
was his
time,
first
he did a
time.
great
Yeah.
job. I was tuned in on that.
Thank
I was
you,
all
man.
over it. With
Yes.
You're
Yeah.
hosting.
Yeah.
I got to stir the pot.
Shameless,
Oh, yeah,
shameless
I'm glad
plug.
you do.
Shameless plug for the show, man. I'm like, I'm behind the camera. It's like drives me crazy because I'm like, the control freak.
You drive me crazy behind the camera too, Joe.
and it's so fun every
There's a few
show.
of us in here, huh?
Yeah, right. Every show has been so much fun. I've had such a blast. I'm like, it's a baby of mine, but I'm a fan. I actually really enjoyed the show.
I'm really enjoying it myself.
Yeah, it's been awesome.
I liked your
Those are
promo.
on- those are on
We
Thursday.
stole it.
Yes. You gotta look for the promo. It's on the Facebook page.
That
Yes.
was awesome.
Yeah.
We want to do some more of those because that was fun.
So where's the art show tomorrow?
Jomar Visions, 290 in Pine Mine.
And it's all curated by Chris.
Oh yeah,
So,
curated
yeah.
event. Actually, I have an after party after the event in my studio. Also an artist as well, as you guys probably know, because I host the other one. That's my art. It's been up
This is
there for
beautiful.
2 weeks.
Yeah,
I should
okay,
probably
cool.
take it down eventually.
I love it.
I've only seen it on the show before today. It looks even more awesomer in person.
Thank you.
Is that the
I
word?
Yeah,
appreciate
awesomer.
it.
More
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
I'll take it.
Absolutely.
I'll take it.
So we have to. I normally acknowledge the comments about 20 minutes into the show, but we have to acknowledge this comment. Terry Bryan Bending is asking, "How do you bid on the Wounded Warrior auction?"
Okay, so if you come out to the event, we're going to shut the auction down an hour before the event's over, and it's a silent auction. So there would be a piece of paper on a desk right near where all the art is that's being auctioned, and you go find the number next to the art, find the page that's got the number on it, and you'll see a minimum bid. I can't stress to you, the last show we did for the Harvey benefit was the minimum bid was ridiculously low, and so I can't. I mean.
A lot of people are just donating stuff.
I mean,
you know,
I donated
art,
4
yeah.
pieces, and 3 of them sold for less than $50. And I mean, I made $150 to help somebody. And
So to Terry's point, this may help you out too, because
Yeah.
Terry's one of my out-of-state friends. He's a
Oh,
fellow
okay.
Constitutionist.
Yeah,
so
all right, Terry,
He
out of
might
state.
want to donate
yeah,
or
if you
give
want,
some
if
other
you wanna,
way.
If you want to go through that, message me. I can send you the link that we will go to. They'll go straight to our event with Wounded Warrior Project.
Terry, if you can message me.
Oh yeah,
For the show?
Or message the
Fine,
page,
too.
yeah.
Or,
Yeah, message the page. Drop us a deal. Just let us know you're interested in donating to the Wounded Warrior Project, the auction that they're doing, and I'll get you connected with Chris and Harley for the show.
And I'll definitely I can give you a video of what's up there and the pricing and all that stuff. You
Yeah,
know,
so
if
he
you want
said
to do a
he's in
remote
Ohio.
bid, we're all good with that.
Yes. So, okay, bullet point, kind of a thing here.
Yay or nay?
You always panic me when I see the feed like froze. Everything's okay. Everything's okay.
It's beautiful.
That face was
Okay.
not okay.
It's a beautiful thing. We have live.
I was like, I think we messed up.
Freaking technology, man! I tell you what.
I just accidentally clicked on the notification.
Okay. I'll tell you guys. You know, this is an adventure.
Every show.
Because whether you realize it or not, you're watching live programming on Facebook, and that's cutting edge, right?
TV's already out the door. For
TV
Netflix.
is old. It's going away. We now have live interactive TV,
Thank the Lord.
right? So
That's
you
right.
actually get to
That's right.
participate in the show, right? It's
They used to do call-ins.
right? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like calling that type. But this is, I mean, it's
It's way
cutting
faster.
edge, and the technology behind making this happen is still very new. So stuff goes wrong. Practically every show. I
And
mean,
we're
like,
new.
yes, and we're all new to this. So you know, it's
Yeah.
fun, man. It's an interesting gig. But we're trying to teach America what it looks like. And this is, you know, I'm sharing my heart with you here now. We're trying to show America what it looks like to talk about sensitive subjects without killing each other. And I promise you, we're going to disagree. It happens. And I've stolen a phrase of David's here, more than once actually, but specifically this one.
Stole grape heads too.
Right, absolutely. I give him no credit for it.
Steal away, my friend.
Couple
Steal away.
more times, I will just deny 100% that he ever had anything to do with it. He coined the phrase here. He said, by the end of the show, you may not have realized that we've disagreed. Because that's
I
how
thought
it
you came up with
looks.
that.
Yes. And he said that, right? And on a show, I don't even remember what show it was. But anyway, the point being is that when civil, rational adults have a conversation, even when they disagree, it doesn't look like disagreeing. It looks like asking questions and dialoguing back and forth respectfully. And America freaking needs that.
learn.
We have a problem.
And on occasion, we actually learn something from
Yes!
one another, don't we?
Novel idea.
With as much
Sometimes
as
my
I know,
mind
changes.
I mean, with all the things I know, I still manage to learn something from time to time.
So-
Amazing thing.
So guys, chime in on this subject.
Marty's
Chime
giving me
in.
the stink eye. He's going, you don't learn nothing, Dave. You don't learn a thing. You're hard-headed. Your head's a brick.
He said, but under his breath, he said, "You're gonna learn today."
I'm gonna learn you.
Yeah, we're
I'm gonna learn you.
How you doing?
I'm gonna learn you. It's within reach, guys.
That's right.
It gets a little out of
Plug it
control. Right. So comment. We're going to start digging in. I'm going to get the bullet points here. I want to hear your thoughts because as soon as they're done commenting, we're going to jump back and look at some of y'all's thoughts on this. Is marriage a dying institution? Is it just out of style, old-fashioned, no longer hip and trendy, cool? Or is it something that our society absolutely needs that we're screwing up by getting away from? Give us your thoughts on where you stand on that idea. Share them. We're going to come back here in a second. So I'm going to jump over back now to Chris and get the bullet point from you, 1 minute or less kind of a thing. Where do you stand on this?
1 minute or less, I feel like even though my parents are together to this day, marriage is dying and there's no saving it. Truly. That's what I think.
All right. Very optimistic.
No.
He's optimistic.
No,
it's
no.
dying.
Hey, but
I'm
that
certain.
doesn't mean
He's
I can't
very
have
positive.
It doesn't mean I can't have a committed
He's
relationship.
positive it's over.
It's to me, in my world, it's two different things. Marriage
Right.
and committed relationship are two different things because I grew up where 50% divorce rate. All my friends don't have their parents aren't together, so that's my stance on it.
All right. Stephanie?
My stance is that the definition, or I guess the scope of what the institution of marriage is, has broadened. And so it may seem like it's dying, and in some aspects it may be, but ultimately I don't think that it is.
It's evolving.
It's evolving. That's
All
exactly
right,
what's
all
happening.
right.
Yeah.
David?
To me, you're not weighing in on this?
No.
He's a neutral party.
Yeah, he's neutral. We know that.
Devil's advocate right there.
I never
you ain't
share
gonna
my
get off
thoughts.
that easy.
My short answer on that is that marriage will never die. I do acknowledge that as things stand right now, it is dying in the same way that like someone who's been through a traumatic experience is in ICU and has to go through the blood transfusions and stuff like that. May be dying at a point, but the effort is to save it. And as a committed Christian constitutionist, I feel that there's only one way to save it, as with our very lives and existence in this very nation, is by plugging back into the one who created us and gave us our life and gave us our rights.
All right. He was way too vague. I'm gonna ask him to clarify.
Yeah.
So.
I'm still
Set
digesting.
me up. I feel the setup.
Believe it or not, that wasn't what I planned to say in the conference room. But it is what it is.
That rolls. That rolls.
All right.
I'm playing.
Give me a
he
little
was
wine,
very
I don't know what you're gonna
specific.
get.
So.
Well, a bullet point. Okay.
Yes.
Fine.
I was under a minute.
I can see that my wife is. She checked into the show and now she's.
Marriage is amazing.
I think I saw
She
a couple
is
of the
not.
same
No,
last
she
names
is not
going
on there
through
now. But anyway, she'll probably say she is.
Yes.
I'm not threatened by the concept of marriage. We've all seen people go through trials and tribulations through marriage, but my summary is it's a labor of love. It needs to be something that you need to have the patience of Job, and you'll get through just about everything.
Job was married.
So, yeah, he was. Anyway, I just don't feel like it's. I don't feel like it's a dead
Patience and
institution.
Job.
I think it's. If anything, we need to get the state out of it. That's my bullet point.
There's an interesting chime in. Get the state out of it.
man.
There's my libertarian streak, again coming in. All right, so I want to jump in and address a couple comments if we have anything going on. First of all, scroll to the bottom if you can. Get some welcomes in here. Thanks for joining us. Tamra has joined us. Tamra Zalut. She's been on the show.
Tamra!
Yep. Roger Hernandez, my brother, always tuning in. I love you. Thank you for tuning in.
He
every
likes my
week.
awesomer word. I like it.
Awesomer, yes. Brandon Macy.
I'm HISD educated, just so you know.
Brandon Macy, thanks for tuning in. Harley, who's behind the camera, thanks for tuning in. Terry, we already talked about your comment. Thanks for tuning in.
We love Terry.
We love Terry. Scott Davenport, thanks for tuning in. Cindy G, a regular on the show.
Woo!
Thanks for tuning in,
Cindy G.
Joseph Mancato, another regular on the show. Gay Watkins, David Craig, Crystal
Daddy.
Pipkin.
I know her.
Yes.
I knew I saw it last night.
That's
my
my
name.
baby daddy.
Now,
Daddy's on
Crystal.
the screen.
Who is?
That's my baby daddy.
David Craig? Is he really?
Baby
I didn't even
daddy.
know. Very cool. All right. David.
Hi.
Yeah, chime in with nothing but great comments, David. I'm just saying, you're under the gun now. 'cause
David's are
she's-
the best guys.
She's watching. Lacey, yo, I'm on right now. Thanks for saying hello, Lacey.
More wine.
Yeah, more wine, please.
Gay, we are drinking Point de Fuite, a nice Chardonnay from France. So we're very uppity on this show today. So
Did you just snort?
I did. It's from France. Terry, thanks for joining the show. Terry James Fisher, to be exact. Joe said, I schooled David the last time I was on the show.
Yes, you did,
yes.
Joseph. Yes, you did.
Kwame!
Yes.
Kwame was on the show. He's been on the show twice. Love
Joseph
that
showed
guy.
me how to get turned down by more women inside of 2 minutes than
Yes.
anyone ever, man. I mean,
No
yeah,
doubt.
awesome.
Yes. Mr. Apple, H. Scott. Scott, thanks for tuning in, brother. He always has some good comments. Terry Brian Benning said, God commands us to join together man and woman, so God has a plan.
Amen.
All right, so we're definitely going to address that point.
Now, I
know
don't
David's
agree
got
with Terry
some-
on his next one.
All
I
right.
don't agree with that. He says no marriage license. I agree. I don't
Okay.
agree on that.
Okay.
So that's one of the...
That's
to
the
go to
state thing. Yeah,
That's right.
absolutely, absolutely. Marianne, thanks for tuning in. Jennifer, thanks for tuning in. Nate, thanks for tuning in. You guys comment. Where are you at on
Yeah,
this?
you got so many people on this thing.
Marriage a good thing? Marriage a bad thing? Is it going away?
Through the void.
Through the void. What
This looks like so much fun. Great job. You're right. Through the void.
Oh,
it is.
through
lot
the
of
void.
fun.
Very
It is
cool.
awesome. Sorry.
Scott said, icebreaker. If a wife is someone to get you through the tough times you wouldn't have if you hadn't gotten married in the first place.
I take it Scott's single.
Yeah.
I think it's Scott's single.
Scott's single. Yeah, Scott's single.
No, he's not.
Tamara is asking, marriage in the religious or state context. We have been kind of touching on that, Tamara,
Yes.
and we're going to
Back
chime
and
in. What do you think? What's your position, Tamara? I know you're a wonderfully opinionated young lady.
Really hard to draw her out. Yeah.
Yeah, so go ahead and chime in. Do you think marriage?
Sarcasm in this show. This doesn't flow
Me?
so free on my show.
I can feel him rocking all those thumbs already. Boy, it's coming.
Gay
Here it comes.
said, marriage is a much-needed institution. People have just gotten too far away from what a commitment really means. Woo! That's a deep one right there.
I agree.
Go
No
Gay.
one really commits to anything anymore.
Citizen
Right?
gratification.
A day said, tomorrow? I don't know.
I don't know.
Tomorrow. Sorry. That's another
Annie
show.
reference.
Yes,
All
an
right.
Annie reference. A day, chime in with what you meant on that. Melissa, thanks for tuning in. Ironically, Melissa is an ex-girlfriend. So, who's been happily married for a long time and has, I
Good
think,
save.
3 boys.
Where's that lifesaver thing you were talking about,
I
Harley?
think I saw your other last
Yes.
one there.
So I see, I'm good, man. I've got this down. Right? Denise, thanks for
Get over
tuning
here.
in. Megan Latour. Megan is a beast with like the muscles, man. This girl's like a competitive, whatever you call it, competitive muscle trainer. I don't know, whatever. Anyway, bodybuilder. Thank you for saving me.
He's like,
A muscle person.
Thin ice.
Hashtag thin ice. Yes. All right, so you guys keep chiming in now. We've got a couple comments that have come up. We've got the state thing, right? We had Terry who mentioned that the institution is a God thing, and we need it. We need to get back to what the original intent and design of it was. That was his point. So we've got 2 big kind of points here to jump in on, right? One is that it was a God-designed institution, right? So we can share our thoughts on that. The second part is, share your thoughts on it. Chris is choking.
Heimlich.
You got him drinking more wine.
Slap him on the back.
You got him drinking more wine than he's ever drank before.
I don't drink wine.
This is one topic. God and fucking marriage. Excuse my language.
Wow. All right. What's the time? 5:25. Go ahead and log it.
Yeah.
First F-bomb.
I didn't hear anything.
Marriage has already brought him to cursing. The idea of God
And
marriage.
drinking.
And drinking, yes.
That's actually
Wow.
not very good. Marriage has got me to cuss.
Yeah. And no loaded statement here. Harley said marriage equals the most expensive mistake you can make. Wow.
That's true.
And
It can be.
Joanna is
Can be the
probably going to
most
chime
lucrative
in.
as well.
Joanna, share your thoughts. She's been tuning in regularly on the show. She's over at Jomar Visions.
She's the mama.
She's the mama of Jomar
She's the
Visions, a phenomenal artist and a very sweet gal. Ashley Bradley said, marriage can be beautiful, but unfortunately it's beat into so many people's minds that it's the only way to show compassion and love towards someone that it's been watered down. I personally don't care for it and find it to be very confusing and expensive tax deduction. And an expensive tax deduction. Got it.
I agree.
All right, so
Completely.
let's chime in. Let's roll here. So
Start over there.
start over there.
You know I'm chomping at the bit, but I'll wait because there's a
I know they're
Yeah,
ready.
multifaceted.
there's a multifaceted answer to a lot of this. But
Yes.
Steve, if you want to jump
Whatever
on
you want to
first.
jump on.
Well, I guess I can say I waited till late in life to get married.
I was just
And,
gonna say,
and basically,
for the audience's sake.
we need to give our personal
Yeah.
experiences. in
Married,
this.
married or not married, where we're at.
I met Esther, my wife of 17 years, on a blind date.
My parents met like that. St. Patrick's
And
Day, 30
it
years.
was an extremely fun time. She was a lot of fun to be with.
She met him when he was
And,
dancing in La Bears.
Yeah.
So
But
back
No,
in, back
I
in
gotta
his-
go back there after this.
Back in the day,
back in the day,
he took a shift off.
A lot of
that's
people
all.
a lot of people were really amazed to hear
Ben's covered.
that we had actually met on a blind date,
Yeah.
and hit it off. I gave her my phone number, my pager number. I don't think I had an email at the time. I think I did.
Nobody
I gave her
had
every form of communication, and she still didn't call me for about a week. So anyway, but that was just kind of funny.
Get a month now.
She'll have her own little version. What we need to do is get her on the show sometime and spell.
Yes. I
That
think
would
we've
be
tried
great.
to get her on the show.
Yeah, she just Anyway.
She likes sniping from the comments.
Oh yes, she does, boy. And when I get home after
Crack
this,
shot.
boy, I tell
Right,
you,
right.
She's a crack shot.
As you go.
yeah, she's taking notes right now. So, no, I feel like it's still a good thing to be married to someone that you love, and that it completes your life. It really does. It gives you something to do. It gets you
All right,
something to
so-
work on. If you screw it up, there's half the fun's trying to get it right. And it's frustrating. But like I said, it's a labor of love, and it's always a challenge. It's character building.
Okay, so I want to ask a question then, because we
Go.
kind of had two big points that were thrown out, right? And more will come, right? The first point was related to it's a God institution, right? It's something that God designed, right? And that where our failings are is in falling away from that design. That was one big point. And the second point was, does the state have any business in this institution? Right? So chime in on either one of those comments, and let's react to that.
Well, I'll try to
Take it.
to jump in on that, and let me preface it by saying this: that even from a Christian standpoint, I've attended many sermons from several different churches where the pastors attempted to tackle the concept of marriage, and in 1 to 2 hour sermons or a series of sermons, still won't get all the way through it. So to try to do it all here inside of an hour, it's a impossible, monumental task. Bullet pointing the best I can. A lot of the criticisms I hear, such as what you said, Chris, about that it is a failure, or the Keith Abloh commentary that you shared with us, where he goes through 4 or 5 different reasons about why it doesn't work. It all approaches it from a human standpoint, a very emotional reaction, not response, reaction. In fact, I guess the best way to sum it up would be, the Bible commands us to love our neighbors as ourselves, right? First of all, love God. Second of all, love our neighbors as we love ourselves. And the highest priority neighbor that we have is if we choose a spouse, right? And so in loving that person, what we find, and I am married, Unfortunately, I'm divorced, have a daughter by a previous marriage. Had to get it right the second time. We just celebrated anniversary number 5. That's my dear sweet honey badger Crystal, who's watching us now. So I got to be really nice because she is a honey badger.
Marriage is amazing.
It is amazing, totally amazing. But the challenge is that you have to go outside yourself, and so if you're looking at marriage from a standpoint of what you can get out of it, and you have two people approaching it from that standpoint, you're going to be drawing from an empty well. You got two people trying to quench their thirst from something that is absolutely a dry desert. And so in that regard, from the human standpoint, it'll never work. It's until we tap into the love that God has for us. And I'm not trying to come on this show, on this episode, and be a Bible thumper or anything like that. But what I'm saying is that I know a lot of people go into the God standpoint of this. Mm-hmm. A lot of people will question, they'll say, well, throughout the history of the world, all different societies have had their forms of marriage, and they called it different things. That's beside the point. In America, we had Christian marriage. That's what was understood. Our heritage as a nation is decidedly Christian. I mean, it's beyond debate. We can debate it. We'll have many shows we will debate it. But it is decidedly Christian. And so it was upon that religious founding, that idea that our rights come from a creator that endowed us with those rights, that we have this society. So that's the first part of it. So that leads to the state aspect of it. And my standpoint on that has always been that when Thomas Jefferson, although you say it's John Adams who probably wrote a lot of the Declaration of Independence, but it was credited to Thomas Jefferson. Right. But he said that among these rights, right, he didn't go through an exhaustive list of unalienable rights. He said among these rights that God gives to us that cannot be taken by the government is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? Well, I submit that marriage is among those unalienable rights, but it's marriage with a defined parameter. It's not this perversion that our society has now stepped off into as we turn away from God and start trying to call things that aren't by names, or call things that I trip myself up. calling things that are not by a name they are not, right? I mean, the idea of gay marriage is an oxymoron. It's an absolute, it impales itself on the idea. That's not God's idea of marriage. And that's where our country came from. Now, I know I've said a whole mouthful on this, but what is the role of the state?
1 minute?
The role,
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, this one is in a minute. We can talk long on this one.
But the role of the state is what it's always been, to recognize marriage, because there is a legal implication of being marriage. It's always been the status in this country that if, and I've brought this up before, if I was brought up on charges of a crime, my wife, as the other part of me, cannot be compelled to testify against me. Our state has always recognized marriage, so I have no problem with states issuing licenses to recognize valid marriages. I, as far as tax cuts and all that, we can debate that. I do think that the government has a responsibility to encourage family, and family at its root is marriage. So I do think that there's a role for government to acknowledge and encourage marriage. But I get it where there can be, I could be swayed to an argument where they need to stop giving tax breaks and stuff like that. I mean, I see both sides of that. So anyway, I've taken up a lot of time, but it's a very complex answer. I hope that helps.
Joe,
that was good.
Scott brings up a very good point here. You'll probably need to read that. Scott,
the bottom. I agree that marriage is a religious institution.
So first, we'll come back.
Sure.
Comments I normally would hit back.
He brackets it up.
Yeah, I'm gonna get back in about 6 minutes to the audience's comments. So we had a pretty lengthy, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I don't mean that in a negative way.
I try to do as short as I could.
Right. Thorough. It's a better word. Thorough argument put forward about the context of marriage coming from a God origin, right? And I'm certainly biased in this sense as well, that I'm a Christian, and I've many times made the arguments, and I'm like, I've talked to very intelligent people on this subject. At the end of the day, we have a thesis statement for our government. And I've made this comment many times on the show. The thesis statement for our government exists in the Declaration of Independence, where it says, we hold these truths to be self-evident, right? That, yes, come on, hey,
fine. I didn't get a refill at all.
No, I'm topped off.
It's gone out.
Yes, there we go.
How to interrupt Joe.
Yes,
We're
denied
saying-
Joe Whine. I'll totally get off track, right? We have a thesis statement of why governments exist, right? And basic premise for the thesis of why governments exist is found in the Declaration of Independence. And in the Declaration of Independence says we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, right? That's the opening premise, that by the fact that we have a creator and that we came from that creator, that mandates that we must all be equal, right?
I think I should be complimented that every time I'm on the show, he has to make this speech.
Right. It's a true story.
Comes with a disclosure.
Every time.
I've seen it twice now.
There's a theme here.
I'm sorry.
So much the same. The premise then was we're created equal. So since we're created equal, that means we have certain rights that come from the process of being created: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And then it follows up with that and says that our government is instituted to protect these rights. That's the whole point of government, right? So it lays down the very premise for the existence of our government, right? And so that really, again, whether you agree or disagree isn't the point, right? Ed's complaining. A lot of Bible thumping going on. It's context.
Right.
It's context.
Carmela says the same thing, and this is what I'll let me sum this up real quick for Carmelo. Carmelo is saying once you begin the discussion by referencing God and religion, you have to define which God and which religion. Carmelo, no, we don't. It is the fact is that it's because we were founded on Jesus Christ that we have freedom of religion, because Jesus, aside from other religious figures, never held a sword to somebody's neck and said, if you don't believe in me and profess me as your Lord and Savior, I'm going to chop your head off. Okay? Our freedom of religion comes from the model that Jesus Christ set forth. So that doesn't mean you have to be a Christian to be a United States citizen. But it is something that you have the right to be an atheist. We have the right to worship or not worship God in the way that we're committed, but it's in the way we think He wants us to worship Him, right? And Christianity was always encouraged in our nation. It doesn't mean they never signed up and said, right, we're going to have Episcopalians be the official brand of Christianity, right?
Well, that's what the Constitution was all about. It was not set up for the state to come in and tell everybody here in this room to worship a certain way.
That's right. It's up to you to decide
State
how
would
and
never
if you
set
worship.
that up.
You have a point?
No, I was like,
It restricted the government from doing that to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the fallacy that happens from that argument is that people then say, well, the founders weren't promoting Christianity, and that is false. Christianity in a general sense was always promoted by the founders. In fact, they cited Christianity and the teachings of Christ specifically to found this nation. That's how we got our freedom of religion. So yes, you can come here, and that's why Jews had a refuge here after World War II, because we don't compel people to follow a certain religion.
Well, that's why we got here.
There is freedom of conscience.
When you're
We were
talking
kicked
about-
out for religious persecution. That's how America happened.
Exactly right.
So that's why.
Anyway, I know I cut you off.
Right, but
No,
whenever
sorry. Go
you're
ahead.
saying, though, that an atheist can't come and speak about marriage as from the same place that a Christian would because of where we were founded, well, marriage wasn't founded here. It has roots deep, 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 and in different areas. I forgot where the root word
a
of
word
marriage
for
comes
it.
from, but it
Yeah.
comes from like Islam or some other place.
But we're not
But-
tracing the roots of
right.
marriage back to the history of the world. We're tracing
Right.
the roots of
Well,
marriage.
No, we're talking about marriage
No.
in
Need
general,
to.
right?
We were
and
founded.
it doesn't matter what you believe in, because if you're an atheist, you tend to have a worldly view on different things.
But that's what Joe was speaking to is the basis of our rule of law. That's what makes us equal. We're not a nation ruled by a person or people. We're a nation based on the rule of law.
Right.
And that rule of law is built upon a foundation of God.
Right. Well, and that
That's
foundation
what ensures
changes
our equality.
consecutively,
Common sense.
but it's also built on.
built upon of common sense.
Okay, but to your point, common sense, is that so common these days?
No, but I mean,
How can you say
if you're a
no?
good person, you're a good person. I mean, and this is a God subject, and I can bring this all around
Oh,
back
we
and
can go all
forth.
day,
But
yeah.
I get that God says that marriage is His way. You guys quoted it. I can't quote you on it. I kind of tune out when I hear that kind of stuff because for me, it's your choice on what you do for yourself and your relationship. There is nothing. To me, there's nobody up there directing on what I'm going to do.
But if you went to a Muslim society, you would not have to yourself become a Muslim to acknowledge you're living in a Muslim society.
No.
Where
I do live in
where
a
America's
Right.
different.
Right.
Well, let me verify that.
Right.
Where America's different is that it's simply the model of marriage. And this was what Justice Roberts, I believe, was saying in his dissenting view on that whole gay marriage ruling of the Supreme Court. He was saying once you get away from the parameter of man and woman, on what basis can you object to anything else? Why? I've used the example before. Why couldn't the Manson family, Charles Manson and all his clan, have stood up before the courts and said, "Hey, we're all married," and then the state would not have allowed them to use testimony against one another because they could have all said, "Hey, we're all married," right? Once you get
all
away,
the way to control you, buddy.
well, but that's the point. We have
government,
to.
the
When-
You know
when-
what? You just brought. That's a very good point.
But when you say we have a moral foundation, whose
I
morality?
know exactly what you meant.
It's a,
Whose
well,
morality?
marriage in itself, and that's the whole point of
They
this
wanna know
topic.
who your client
It's
is.
so subjective to everybody, and we're living in a time and a place and an age where everything is becoming more subjective. Because your truth is different than mine. It doesn't mean that we're both immoral people.
But our subjective differences in truth
And we-
are what's what we're looking for are adjudicated by the objective differences or the objective truth of where our rule of law comes from.
But that's-
Marriage is this. Otherwise, you can marry your cat.
Right. So
You
that's
can
the
marry
thing,
your
though.
chair.
People are getting married to themselves today. And actually, I am a Christian, and I do have the same beliefs as you. But I also understand that not everyone's going to believe what I believe in. And that if they don't believe in what I believe in, it doesn't make it any less false for them. I can't believe it for them. You know what I mean?
think we're mixing issues,
So,
though, because
yeah.
I hear what you're
This is a
saying.
tough
Well, but-
one.
no, but-
That's why I kind
Well,
of
when it
wanted
comes
to
to spirituality.
start.
And that's okay.
No, that's good. It's
Yeah.
good.
And I want to chime in real quick on this, right? I wasn't just going to history and the Declaration of Independence for the fun of quoting it, right? I went to it specifically to establish the idea that whether we agree or not, we could be atheist.
I love your show, Joe.
I was laughing at Harley's comment.
Me
I'm
too.
sorry.
We could be atheist, we could be Muslim, we could be Buddhist, whatever, right?
Harley.
This is not a statement against any group, right? Our government is founded on a concept, and it has a framework of design.
You don't think they're just
Right.
lazy? Because, I mean, it's already there.
No, I don't. So my point is that our government, as he said, we're a nation of laws, right? And so the context, whether we agree or not, doesn't matter. The context for the existence of our government was based in a very specific ideology. And if we come to the table saying, well, I don't agree with that ideology, it's great. You don't have to agree.
Right.
But there are rules in place that you have to abide by. And if you don't, it doesn't work. And you can't go willy-nilly changing the parts of it that you don't like. It
And this-
doesn't work.
This speaks
Right?
to the point as to why the state does need to be involved,
Right.
because there is a legal recognition of marriage. Otherwise, you could have somebody, I mean, two bank robbers, whether they're the same sex or not, could say, "Hey, we're married now, and so we can't be compelled to testify against one another." And there's all kinds of legal. I'm just touching on the surface of that. There's all kinds of
That's why there
legal
shouldn't be
implications.
Any involvement.
Well, hear the rest of
Right.
my point. I'm just saying that we can all have our subjective differences about what we think marriage ought to be, but that's why I brought up the example of a Muslim nation. I don't agree Allah is God, but I would have to understand that I'm in a society, if I go to a Muslim nation, where those people do believe, and that very government is founded upon the Quranic, construction.
Well, I mean, I'm extremely respectful of everybody that has their religion. 'Cause, I mean, I have mine, and not many people agree with mine. So,
Sure.
I mean, I have to be understanding of yours, because not many people are mine.
There are so many facets to this issue.
Yeah.
And everybody,
Yeah, we're scratching
everybody
the
has
surface.
gone through, and we have barely been able to get around the whole diamond
so
of
actually-
this
Okay.
concept. So I want.
We're
I
not
want
gonna
to
second base.
put a totally different spin on this. All right, totally different spin because we look.
Spin it, Joe.
I can talk religion as much as anybody. Trust me. I want to put a different spin on this just to get a different take because, like you've said, we're all going to acknowledge there's no way we're going to get to the bottom of it, so to speak, with any point of this, right?
Ting, ting, ting,
I
ting,
just
ting,
love you
ting,
guys
ting,
so
ting.
much.
This is great.
Here's a different angle, an entirely different angle. Marriage from the concept of value in emotion, the dynamic of a relationship, being together, all that sort of thing, right? Let's talk about that for a minute, right? And I'll I'm going to throw out my obvious bias for those who don't know. 24 years with the same gal.
I need to get to our side of the relationship panel.
We'll
That's so successful.
Get to the millennial side now.
right? And I'll have my 20th anniversary in March 7th, and we've been together a minute. So I have an obvious view of marriage. My wife is my best friend. I want to spend more time with her than anybody. All right, I enjoy being with her. So I have an obvious bias. All right, which is part of the reason why I'm staying a little bit out of this. But here's moving kind of on, guys, and Tamara, actually, you touched on it maybe more than you know with where I'm going with this direction of it, agape love, right? For me and my Christian worldview is that the marriage relationship is the closest thing on earth to the relationship in the God Trinity belief, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
Correct.
Is that it's a model of the relationship of unconditional love between Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. That's what it's supposed to be. Obviously, we're humans, and we screw that up.
What about my mom, though?
Huh?
My mom's got some love for me, though.
Of course. Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
another relationship I'd put there, right there. If,
But these are co-equal roles. And as a child, you're not equal to your mother.
But now,
right?
as an adult.
Yeah. So, yes. Anyway, I don't want to get too bogged down. What I wanted to kind of get from each of you guys was, in a purely from a relationship standpoint, is marriage a necessary thing? Right? Can we have all of the same pros without all the same cons of doing it without the dynamic of marriage? Right?
There's many people certainly trying it.
Right.
Well,
right.
you know what? Is marriage? You said is marriage a necessary thing? I don't believe it's necessary. It's going to happen or it's not. Okay. And
Well, what do you mean by necessary?
Well, I don't know. That Joe brought that.
Well,
up.
okay. So to be clear, is it necessary for a fruitful, healthy relationship, an enjoyable, long-lasting relationship? I'm trying to avoid words that would pigeonhole
in
it.
the context of just a man-woman relationship, or in the context of family?
Is the title necessary to have the good relationship?
Well, but that's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Are you saying in a man-woman sense, or in the standpoint of family?
Or
Those are distinct questions.
I think it's just
any
partnership in general.
relationship. Any relationship
Partnership
at
in
all.
general is kind of where I was going with it. I'm less about involving the kids in the conversation and more just as in a purely relationship kind of a thing.
Okay, so just man-woman
And I want to,
well,
guys, I will chime in just so you know, and probably David as well. I go through the feed after every show. I spend hours doing this. It takes up about 5 hours of my Saturday, but I will go through every single comment and I'm going to respond with my thoughts as best I can. So I love all of your comments. I really appreciate it. So if I don't, exactly. There's so many
Cheers.
great
Thanks
comments.
for the comments.
Clink.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you
Cheers.
for tuning in.
There's so many great comments. There's
We're gonna
no
keep it
way
light.
we could address them all on the show right now. So I'm shifting gears in this just to bring out another dynamic of this conversation because there's a lot of meat on this
Yes, there
bones.
is.
So again, feel free to chime in on this as well. Just don't feel bad if I didn't get to your comments. And I want to see some of your thoughts on this part of it. Is marriage the state legal concept of marriage, church, whatever you want to call it, however you're framing it, is that a necessary title? I like that word to apply to the relationship in order to have a fruitful, long-term,
sense of commitment.
etc. Is it a plus? Is it a minus? Is it better? Is it worse? Is it an extra boost? Is it weighing you down? That kind of thing. Where are you coming from?
Okay. I see a kind of a common thread here, and we've been dancing around the subject for just a little bit. Some of us have made it clear that we want government out of the business of marriage. What I think government has turned marriage into, obviously, it's a contractual agreement between two people. It really takes the love, it takes the emotional meaning of marriage out of a lot of people's lives. I mean, they turned it into this like, well, if I don't get my way, I'm going to take you to the cleaners. That's what most divorces come out to be, is more of a secular property rights driven battle. And
now
you
it's
know,
common law after 7.
I just say, you know,
And
hey,
you got the
if you're
choice.
going to break up the marriage, I'm going to let the other person have everything that they want. I'm going to wash my hands of it.
That's what I did. I didn't even get
Okay,
married.
so, but that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen with me. I'm just saying that
7
I just
years.
think that the state's come in and really driven this thing into the state that we're in right now. It's very apathetic in relationships. Relationships have become disposable. Instead of
Instant
why
gratification.
don't you find a way to wrap around the disagreement, because you're not going to go through an entire marriage,
It's more
50,
work.
60, 70 years. You're not going to go through there without any kind of conflict. You know, there's going to be
It's
nights
more
where you're
work.
just going to be
Nobody
kind
wants
of
to work anymore.
mad. It is, like I said, it's character building. It gets you to know the other person, where their boundaries are. Explore those boundaries.
You
There's
have
nothing
to.
wrong
That's
with pushing
about it, though.
the buttons, in my opinion.
I love it. I
All
love
right.
my buttons pushed. Seriously.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, because
You're in the right group.
Yeah, I do, because it would never challenge me to better myself.
That's true.
I mean, I would never get any better, right? Nobody pushed my buttons. I'd never be able to be like, okay, stop hitting that button. You know? So, I like where you're going with it. My thing with marriage in general is they've taken it to the 7-year point, like I was saying. And then, so at 7 years, like, I never got married. I mean, granted, I paid for a wedding. I got about a month out. And then, didn't work out. She cheated on me. I was offshore. I was away from home. She didn't want me there. Whatever, right? But, I mean, bought a house. Went through the whole 9 thing. I wanted it real, real bad. And I was looking at kids in the next year. This was 5 years ago. And so, when I look at marriage, I see a corrupted view. I don't see this godly thing you guys see. I see what man has done to this mangled concept, and I
actually agree on that.
Yeah.
and
In
then I
fact,
see
thinkable
the
moment.
Yeah, and then I see
It's a
the
good
government
point.
go, "Where's the
I
chance to
actually
make
very
money
much agree
here
with that.
and figure out what you're doing in your day to day?" And so, to me, if you just look, we can commit. I'm down to commit. Because I'm all for it. You can ask my girl. We could get after it, and I'm right there getting after it. Doesn't mean I'm going anywhere.
Right.
You know, that's the point, right? The point is to work through, like you said, push each other's buttons, explore those boundaries. Without explanation, you never know what's going to work.
You know, Ed made a great comment here that I really like. He said the institution of marriage is strong. The institution of respect is suffering.
Exactly.
Oh, baby.
Oh, that hurts.
And that is
Ed,
pretty
raise your glass, because,
darn-
man, that's
yeah.
a clinkable
Well,
moment
and that's
there.
the thing too, Chris. You're,
Ed, clinkable moment for Ed.
Clink
Yeah.
to you, Ed.
Clink, Ed.
Yes, cheers.
Da, da, da.
Cindy said, I think marriage should be on a 6-month renewable basis.
You know, that's a
not
great
a bad
point, though.
idea.
That's a great point.
I-
though.
you know what?
At least
If you treated it like that, like one of the
Yes.
points in that article we read
like a
earlier,
job
No, wait.
review.
not at least,
Listen, that's brilliant. You know what?
we're in the same wavelength there.
I'm
yeah.
going to make a cross reference here. In martial arts, once I get my black belt, which I got my second black belt along with my son in August, every 6 months we have to recertify. Right? So
There you go.
every 6 months I am being tested on what I have learned over the last 4 years.
2 years for
And I have to
paramedic.
demonstrate the same skill level. Right?
2 years for paramedic.
Right, every 2 years, right? So every 6 months, I'm checking in on the black belt thing, and now 2 years later, I get the test for my next level, my second degree black belt, right? I'm with you. I think it's a brilliant thing, a brilliant
think so.
statement, right? If you
Very
actually
right
had to
on.
have a
Well,
level.
if you're trying to commit to a person for the rest of your life, why not commit to premarital counseling? Like, it's sensible.
Well, that's a good point.
That is
the,
how that
the other
is.
part is
Yeah.
though that
You have to be willing
what
to
happens
put
is
in the work.
That's handled by a lot of religions, though. Those little pre-marriage.
Yeah, they are.
counseling
And
sessions.
I'm
Catholics
not,
are
I
all
am
over
not
that.
going to say that
Yeah.
I
It doesn't have to be
dislike
spiritual.
religion as a great moral stance. I grew up in the church. I got my morals from the church. I just don't think I can go on believing the same thing y'all believe. And maybe it's because I went through being a paramedic and I've seen some horrific stuff, or maybe it's because I just think
But Chris, it's
people
like
all the
anything
time.
else. It's not something. If you're looking at marriage as something you can do because it comes natural, you're going to fail.
Right.
Joe's analogy
No.
about martial arts is
Yeah,
perfect.
you're right.
You
keep
have to have
working
a
at it.
discipline. If you look at it like if I looked at Crystal
That's-
every
but
day,
if
like
you- even if you
let me
took
finish.
marriage out of that
hold on. If I looked at
relationship.
Crystal, if I looked at my wife every day like someone I had won and she's mine and I got her, I'm going to fail at my marriage. I have
Yeah.
to look at her, and to her credit, she
Continue.
looks at me. I don't know why she does. She has no taste at all in men, obviously. But she looks at
kind of
me
what I like.
as someone, right? She's crazy, and that's what makes it work.
That's what I look for
She
in a
looks
woman.
she looks at me as someone that has to be won daily. I look
Right.
at her as someone that has to be won daily,
That's
and that's
awesome.
part of
That's
why
it,
so
yeah.
many marriages fail, because we look at it from the tactile standpoint of is it working for me now? Does it feel good right now? Right?
Here's an
That's where
example.
it
Here's an
fails.
example.
So kind of my point.
When Esther and I were flooded out of our home
You've
that
just
we
been
had
through
for
it, yeah.
we had a stable environment. It was our home, and when we got flooded out of there, we were very fortunate to be able to land in an apartment quickly after we were flooded out.
Yes, you were.
And that first week and a half that we were at this apartment, I did not plug in the cable very well. And so we didn't have television as a distraction to our after work and our day or late in the
Social
day
media.
activities. So what we did is we would either go online or we would just sit there and gaze lovingly into each other's eyes
Is that how that went?
for a week and a half. And I tell you what, some people would say, "Oh my God, I can't stand this. I'm going to pull my hair out and I'm going to just..." Nah. No, it didn't happen. So, it ended up going to bed a little bit early, for a while there. But, for a week and a half, we didn't have a distraction in our marriage like TV. So if the less distractions in your relationship and your TV or your marriage is really good stuff. I think it's a marriage builder, if you ask me.
I think
Removing distractions out of your life is a good thing.
I think that I've come to the point in my belief that marriage has been it's the same thing as the word relationship to me, because there's no God behind what I'm talking about, right? So what I'm saying is if you're gonna get married, it's the same thing as going into a committed relationship, like leasing or whatever you were just saying. To me, I agree with everything you guys are saying. I just don't agree that it's coming from somewhere else. I think that it's your decision to make that.
But the question is,
So-
it's not whether you
thank
agree
you.
that it's coming from somewhere else. It goes back to the point Joe was making that we do every time that I'm here, right? Is the framework, and that's why there's a legal recognition of it. And Joe posed a question. We didn't get all the way around. Did you want to?
Yeah, I want
answer?
to get in here.
I know
Yes,
she's been waiting.
please.
See?
I can
I've
feel
been catching the
patience.
barbs.
I can feel
the heat.
patience. This is what patience looks like.
Hashtag Harvey husband. Yeah.
You're a Harvey husband.
Yes.
That's a good thing, actually.
Stephanie has a point. Stephanie has a point. We're going to let her chime in.
Okay, so not speaking from religion or from a state, government perspective. Now that I'm talking, I forgot what I was going to say.
I know, don't you hate that?
It happens.
You've been sitting quiet and
I'm not
Have
even
another
so
drink.
Yeah.
All right, so
Well, okay,
Go ahead.
marriage, when you think about it, like in a suit, or when you're playing cards, and card games, they often refer to like marriage and cards, right? And what that is marrying a faces to the same suit.
Okay.
That doesn't necessarily mean the same background, because we all know that where you come from doesn't define where you're going. It doesn't mean where you're heading, although that you guys should be in consensus of yes. Maybe I do want children or I don't want children. You know what I mean? You have to be coming from the same place. It doesn't have to be
Just be working towards the same
right.
goal.
It doesn't have to be a literal
Agreed.
definition of where you're coming from.
for sure.
It's
You just
a
stepped into
common.
my trap.
It's like
I know.
you can't marry someone who's down
saw it
here.
in your
Who's not on the same level as you. You have to be at the same place. Whether it's different religions, but with the perspective that maybe you could bring me to this religion, or maybe through me I could learn this through you. It's from
I'm
where
not
you're
opposed
coming
that
from.
God may have a plan for me.
Right, you never
Hey,
know.
I'm not
the
opposed to
someone
it,
can walk
but
into your
just
life
right this
and
moment,
change
that is how it
everything that
feels
you
like.
think, and that's what marriage is. When that one person walks in, it does change everything that you've accumulated into the ego, the id, up into your current state. Right.
Right.
Scientifically speaking, it's proven that being with a partner, being with a person is good for your health. It's good for their health. It lowers blood pressure.
Well,
it makes you happier.
your sanity.
It is, unless you're not with the right person, and then it can be very damaging to your health.
If you're you're fighting with somebody,
And depending on how much life insurance you have,
And wine.
it can be the ultimate demise.
Harley's coming up with a good hashtag on that one. I can see his wheels turning.
You know, with what Stephanie just said there, she kind of itemized out some bullet points on how do you rate a potential spouse. But Ashley brought up a really great point here, and I know that Harley agreed with that. Stop.
Ooh,
Anyway,
it's moving fast,
I
isn't it?
think people should have a marriage trial period. It's a 1 month classroom. Well, she's defined in
funny,
this.
'cause this
A
is-
1 month
Yeah,
classroom.
this is-
Okay.
this
Sometimes
is
it takes a little bit
marriage
more,
counseling.
but anyway, where you have to do things like choose a house paint color, do taxes together,
that's not a bad idea.
go furniture shopping together. If they can get past through that without ripping each other to shreds, ta-da, meant to be. Okay, I wish it was that simple.
Well, the
No,
thing
but
is-
she brings up a really good little bullet point check like what you did there. So where a man would be the traditional bullet point kind of checklist kind of a guy, if you're a melancholy type thinker that looks at things with a
Broader
structure.
spectrum.
Women, on the other hand, the fairer sex, tend to think about things a little bit more feelings and emotional. They want the doves, they want the flowers, they want the
vibes.
princess wedding, that kind of thing.
The
So,
vibes.
but that's kind of changed in today's society, where the
He's
women are starting to be
Yeah.
very.
He's totally mansplaining.
That's what I was
I'm just
trying to say.
kidding.
With
Go
her
ahead.
comment-
Go ahead.
No,
Go ahead.
With her
I'm
comment,
just kidding.
though,
I'm just
it's-
saying
it's-
that there's a way to structure this relationship thing. But man, guys need to start understanding a little bit more that women are going to be a little bit more emotional about things. So
a little bit.
a little bit.
I love
but
that thing you
not
did
not
the
as
other
much
day.
as what it used to be.
I'm
The,
readily,
the,
I
the
readily
post you
admit
did the
I
other day
like
about
the ones that
if
are
a
more
woman's
emotional.
upset and you
I
know,
like 'em more.
just
I
tell her
don't
she's
know
being
why.
irrational
I just
and
do.
calm down,
Calm
and
down.
she'll
She'll
that
she'll
will
do that.
So going back to her comment, she's talking about we should have these trialships. We
Get them on
do.
page.
Yeah.
People are moving in together
Engagement.
and they're living together and they're living together for years and years and then breaking up. They're not, committing to
Then the
a
lawyer
marriage
calls.
perspective,
Says,
right?
7 years,
They're
bitch.
doing the marriage thing without the marriage and it's failing. And also statistically speaking, women these days from I think they did a poll in in 98 or something, more women are wanting to get married now and less men are wanting to get married. And it's also because of where we are in society and women's rights. And I was on the show a few weeks ago and I said something like, because I'm a feminist doesn't mean I'm anti-man. But that is honestly where a lot of feminists are coming from.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's pro-woman, pro-woman, pro-woman. Well, then the man's when you're looking back at where marriage stems from, they had to go to college where women couldn't go to college. Well, now they can't. They're demanding the same wages and rates in the workforce. We're demanding equality, right? Well, who is it? Nikola Tesla? He said something like, I used to value the woman so much because she was up here, and now she's starting to be like me, and she's just like me, and I don't want that anymore.
She was up on a pedestal. Yeah,
Yeah,
You're not
and
trying to
so-
step down to us.
And so I think that's where the spirituality part of it comes is the emotionality and where are you coming from, a feminine or a masculine perspective,
Yeah, the dynamics of the marriage relationship may change, but the basic hard wiring doesn't.
Right.
And like from the Christian standpoint, man, I know we're running late. You could, because there's this
All right.
there's this
Keep
whole
going.
role of the dreaded word.
Good thing about Facebook Live and nobody else paying the bills, I can go as long as I want.
That's right.
Deal with it.
We're only 4 minutes over. Deal with it.
We have more wine.
There's
The
a
show
word.
will end when this box runs out.
Yeah, hold on. There's
accurate.
there's a word that comes up that usually goes off like a bomb, right? It's when you mention the word submission, right?
Right.
And what happens is that people lose sight, and there's a failure within the Christian faith on that too.
Yeah.
Because the point is that there's a role of submission for each part in the marriage, and being the spiritual leader of your home has a lot of different forms. It doesn't mean that there's
Authoritarian.
this right there. It doesn't mean there's this cookie cutter approach for the man and a cookie cutter approach for the woman. There's all kinds of ways for a man to be the spiritual leader of his home. There's all kinds of ways for the woman to radiate that spirit of the home. But those are the basic functions of the two, and without getting lost in the weeds, because like I said, we're.
Yeah,
I
we're
think we
so
put a
far.
lot of pressure.
I will tell you guys, I want to, I would hope, I know I'm biased, but I would hope, after having put down 24 years of history with somebody, that
Tamara's so right.
I like her.
that is Tamara, I think you can totally call a marriage by watching a couple do The Amazing Race.
That's so true.
Yeah,
She's awesome. I like
spot on.
Tamara.
Hey, if Tamara
Cheers,
and Nick
Tamara.
if Tamara and Nick were to do The Amazing Race, I guarantee you we could watch that. They would win. I
Yeah.
guarantee you they would win.
Yeah.
A
So
lot more ways than one.
again, I'm trying to preface this without sounding like I'm being an egomaniac.
No.
With 24 years of history, I would hope that I have some credibility in speaking on the subject of marriage.
I'd love 24 years anyway.
Right? And I can honestly say, with all my heart, right? I said it earlier. She is my best friend, right? More than any guy, whatever else. If I had the option to hang out with people, I'd rather hang out with her, right? We've done multiple, and we're planning again in March, thousands of miles on the road together in road trips, and that is just a blast to me, right? There's a couple points that I have learned over the years. One of those is, if anybody has ever asked me, any guy has ever asked me, because I can't speak to what it takes to be on the female side of this, my wife will just tell you be very forgiving.
Please forgive me.
She'll tell you that's
I'm just gonna
she'll
put
tell you
that
that's
out
the
there.
secret of marriage is that she's just very forgiving. So
And won't go away.
right, and I don't really
They
disagree
just
with
won't
her.
leave.
I really don't disagree with her. I think that is a big part of our marriage is that she's just very forgiving. But I'll say one of the biggest tricks to being successful in marriage is to never stop being a student of your mate.
Amen.
Right?
Clinkable moment.
Thank you.
You don't think
I don't
marriage
even- I
took
don't
that
have
away
a
from the aspect of that though?
What?
You don't think the titling it marriage
You leave
gave it the?
No, and in fact, I would.
That's what I think society's come to though.
I won't
It is now. Yeah,
I won't
right now.
disagree that society is that approach, but
Right.
I definitely, for me, it's the opposite.
Which it should be.
The commitment to it. I took the vow.
Right.
And it's
Right?
not for a person, like, you don't go into a marriage,
so.
especially as a woman, you don't go into marriage
Amen.
like, I have to be submissive to this person. No, because as a man, and you're my age, like, when girls give you an attitude, you're like, I couldn't be with her. She has an attitude, she does this and that, and I couldn't take that in a relationship, right? Well, of course not.
Well,
That's not your
there's
person.
a million other people.
There's
So-
one person that person,
Right.
I don't do it because I have to. I do it because
because
I want to.
Oh, that's such a good
So
point.
listen, for me, right? I'm gonna try to wrap this up, and we'll have closing thoughts, and we're out of here, right? We'll rate the wine. For me, I believe in the concept that your word should mean something, right? It really bothers me, and I've posted it, and I've kind of called people out on it before. I'm like, don't tell me you're going to call me,
And then don't
right?
do it,
And don't do it. I don't care if it's something simple. In fact, the little lies are the ones that really are destroying your character, right? The simplest little things, right? Oh, I'm definitely coming out to your party tonight. I don't care if it's something ridiculously small.
So
When you have
3
no
weeks.
intention.
Too many times I hear that, I throw 3 weeks.
Right. Exactly. This is my point, right? It's not okay. It's not okay. Your word should mean something.
Yeah,
Right?
You should, word
And-
your balls is all you got.
Exactly. At the end of the day, that's it. My word, my honor, my integrity is all I'm taking with me out of this world. Nothing else, right? And it is what I will pass on to my children. So when I stood before God and man, and I took a vow to forsake all others and to have a lifelong commitment, it meant something to me. I hold value in that statement, right? And so consequently, the goal should be, speaking to men specifically, to continually be a student of your wife. And that plays out in all kind of goofy ways. I read all the Twilight books, right? And I took my wife to Forks, Washington for our 15th anniversary, and we stayed in the Cullen House, bed and breakfast place, right?
Sounds like a great time.
Right. And she said,
Sarcasm's going
she like
around.
told her friend, she's like, I knew he really loved me when, right? It's that
yeah.
kind of stuff because I'm trying to be a student of my wife and
My
what
dad always
makes
called
her
it a bank
happy.
account. You can't withdraw if you don't put it in.
Exactly,
Right.
very much so. It
That's
is
it.
that concept. And I'll tell you this. I'll wrap up with
And you can't keep score because
the-
you'll never be even.
this. I'll wrap up with a funny story here. In that, I would suggest that one of the best books you could read from a relationship status. It's so simple that you almost want to go, this is too simple, right? But it's so simple, and when you read the stories, you're like, holy cow, that's me. That is 100% me. The book is called The 5 Love Languages.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Right?
I've read it.
Not
I was like, what is this book?
Not everybody expresses love or receives love the same way. My wife, her love language, number 1, is acts of service. She wants stuff done for her.
That's me too.
Right?
That's my wife.
And so, my thing is get up in the morning. I'm like, I'll vacuum, clean the floors, get coffee going, all acts of service, right? Doing that stuff. And for her, her natural way of expressing love is physical affection. She hugs, that sort of
Lucky
thing,
you.
right? And that's my hang on. My secondary love language is physical affection,
So
right?
it works well.
Right. So luckily, she's hitting number 2 for me. Now this is where the story gets funny. My number 1, off the charts, not even close, is words of affirmation.
Surprise, surprise. I could
Right?
have guessed that, actually.
Now,
Yeah, no,
it's
I'm probably right there with you.
I
when
keep-
you say that, yeah.
I keep telling her she gets the easiest one. I'm like, you don't have to buy me anything. You don't have to do. I'm just like, just tell me something nice. I'm good to go.
Really though.
And so we have these a couple funny moments. Like, I get up Saturday morning, 6 o'clock. I'm downstairs, man. I have vacuumed. I mopped the kitchen floor. Got all the dishes done. Coffee is just back when we had the pot, right? The pot has just capped off when she's walking the kitchen. I'm like,
Perfect timing.
oh,
Killed
look
it.
what I have done, woman.
I got this
right?
thing on lock.
And she comes up and she gives me a hug, and she goes and pours her coffee. And in my head, I'm like, what the hell, woman? I can't even get a thank you?
Yeah.
Right?
That was your.
That was your thank you.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
you need to hear the words,
right? I wanted to hear it, and she went straight to her love language of hugging,
Right.
right? And if you aren't, that's how you can miss each other in the littlest ways,
Oh, man.
Well,
right?
and I've got to jump in on that because there's a book, there's 2 books that come in for that. One's for her, one's for him.
Oh, cool.
Okay, and I'm telling you, I read the one that said for her only because it's directed to the women
Absolutely.
about her husband. And I skimmed through a little bit and I go, read this. I was like, yes. And then I read the one.
He didn't have to read it because he already knew what it said.
No, I'm telling you, they were right. They deliver some very hard truths, and you couple that with what Joe just said, and then also help each other understand the differences in the basic wiring.
And how they
Yeah.
Oh
thinking
my
versus
goodness,
feeling.
it's
Yeah.
off the
Back to
charts.
finding
Yeah.
boundaries. And,
So look,
But the point is, it's a skill. You have
Yes.
to
Oh,
work.
Yes.
at it.
Work.
It's
Yes.
a skill. You
That
can't-
is my point.
Effort.
That's it. Yeah,
That is my point.
And there I go. I stole it from
That's
you.
right.
You
That is-
stole great pets from me, so I stole your point.
It's all fair. It's all fair.
Skill
yes.
and willingness.
The,
Willingness.
if your heart is to be, and for me, this is where it comes back to the God thing, is that without God, for me, I don't know how people would do it, honestly. Because for me, it's those moments when I'm laying in bed and God is smacking me around going, yeah, you won the war, but you're losing the battle, brother.
Yep. Oh,
Right?
man. That hurts.
Like,
Ouch.
yeah, you can be right. You can be right about the battle and still lose the
Crystal,
war.
don't you use that against me. You
And-
listen to me.
And I mean, there's been so many times
she's already got
when
plans
Oh,
for
I know
you,
she
man.
does, yeah.
when God is speaking to my heart and convicting me of something where I have to set it right, and it goes against everything in me. I'm like, I don't want to do that,
Yeah.
right?
I'm so right though.
Right, I'm so right. Yeah, exactly, and
You
so
see my point here.
And sometimes it is. You can be right or
I
you
know.
can be happy.
yeah,
I'd rather be happy myself. No joke.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
Right.
So, that's my piece of advice is to be a student of your mate. And if it wasn't for being a student, I suck at gift giving. I mean, it's not my thing. It's literally a 0 for me in
Yeah.
a love language, right?
Really?
I don't need gifts. I don't need gifts. But for my wife,
That's one of mine. I like to give gifts.
My
Mine's gifts,
wife?
too,
Yeah.
But I suck at rapping.
No, I won't even wrap it. Just like,
my
hey,
wife,
look, here's a really
that's
cool
her
thing.
number 2. That's her second language, right? And
Yeah.
so if I'm not
You're
doing the gift
failing.
thing, I'm
Yeah.
failing,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, I'm failing. And so I have to try. And I mean, I one
pick
time.
those flowers up on the way home.
Right,
Once in a while,
dude. One time I was like walking down the strip center. I saw a shirt in the window, and I was like, well, that looks like something she's worn before, right? And so I went in, and they're like, I want the shirt that's in the window. And she's like, what size is she? And I'm,
This
Yeah.
big.
yeah,
Tiny.
yeah. Well, she's about like this, and yeah. And so I got a
Beautiful.
shirt.
That's the size.
I brought it home. I'm not joking. She was like calling her mom about it and like posting on. I'm like all this stuff. And I'm
She
like,
just loved it.
it was
yeah.
a T-shirt. I'm
That's so
like,
cool.
really? But you have to be a student of your mate.
Yep.
You got to learn from that. So
That's
anyway,
good.
You know what I've
Good
learned?
point, Joe.
I've learned never, ever
tell her she looks fat in those jeans.
go, well, that
No, me too.
Do these jeans make
He wants
you
to
look
know.
never go
I'm
clothes, never go clothes shopping. The only thing that the man is there for is to hold
the
bag.
bags?
Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
you are an overglorified pack mule. Just accept
See,
it.
I am
I'm
not
not
about
even,
bringing my own
I'm not
chair.
even over glorified.
Believe it or not, my wife would disagree with you on that because I've been on numerous shoe shopping excursions with my wife where I had
Did
her
you get
try
to
on
touch her
shoes
feet,
that
though?
she never would have tried on, and I scored big time. And that right, honey? Tell the truth. I want to see a comment, honey. Are you still watching?
She's
Oh, there
she's
you go.
tuned out already. I
Right.
was kidding.
It's coming, but you don't have to do a thing. God is good. Here
Yeah.
you go. I'll take it.
Christy asked the closing question here. What if what's healthiest is that we communicate and become fluent in giving and receiving love in all those ways? I will tell you, Christy,
Ding,
that is
ding,
a
ding,
brilliant
ding, ding.
statement,
Very hard to do.
but for a different reason. Your spouse is going to have a primary, and depending on their personality, they may have a secondary. I'm like, I was a 1 out of 12. I was a 12 in words of affirmation. I was a 10 in physical affection, and then everything else was like nothing. It wasn't on the charts.
Really?
So you totally miss me if you try to buy me something. I like getting a gift as much as anybody, but it doesn't make me go, I feel loved.
Can I
right?
say this?
when I give gifts,
Wait, hang on,
I put
hang on.
thousands of thoughts into
I want to finish this thought, right?
Sorry,
But-
finish.
But everybody on the planet gives and receives love. And the world would be a hell of a lot better place if we all learned how
gave it out.
to express love towards our fellow man in an educated way.
I have
Which
paintings-
means
I have
that
paintings about this.
which means
Yes.
that not everybody receives love the
Here it
same
is.
way. Not everybody. So
There
even
it is. He said.
Well, but
even in friendships, even in business
Yes.
relations, etc.
because remember what I said earlier,
right?
the wife is your closest neighbor. It's not your only neighbor.
Right,
Just
right,
your closest
exactly
neighbor,
right.
And to that point, I will say this, that one of the things that my wife has taught me more than anything else is what it looks like, because we don't often hit the right chords. Like she'll recognize my efforts at communication even if I didn't do it the right way. And to have that, and I'm not kissing
All
up,
I'm doing is
that
trying.
is such a blessing as opposed to, there's so many out there that have spouses that go, well, yeah, you may have, like to your point, I'm not saying you did this, but, yeah, you may have said thank you, but you didn't do it the right way, so forget it. None of it counts,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
It
yeah.
does take both efforts. It
Oh,
does take eyes willing to see what you would not
Open-minded.
ordinarily see. You cannot
Open-minded.
live
To
in
be
your
able to
own
see other
flesh
perspectives.
and be married successfully. You have to live outside yourself and learn to see that person
supporting
at their heart.
supporting this
Wonderful.
supporting this
Wonderful.
statement. This is brilliant example here.
Thank you.
My
Wonderful statement. I love
my
it.
kids. Well, like my
I'm gonna give you an apple
birthday.
next time we're on the show together.
My kids, right? I will have taken my daughter to Petco or something because my daughter owns a zoo and she keeps it in her room in our house. And I'll have taken her to Petco or something. She'll ask me to take her somewhere. We'll do something. So I take her and I go and come back. And like an hour later after we're at home, she'll come into my office. I'm doing something on the computer. And she'll go, "Oh, thank you for taking me to Petco." I go, "Your mom made you do that, right?" And, and she's like, "Yeah." And that's my wife being on the other side,
Yeah.
going, "Your dad."
That's how she shows love.
Right.
Yes.
So your dad's love language is words of affirmation. You go tell him thank you.
thank
Right. So
you.
she's being observant.
Yes.
And she's playing the other side. She's stepping up to the
Very
plate.
awesome.
So this
Bring that
show.
whole
This is
for
so
that
lovey-dovey.
whole social
Yeah.
family.
Oh my
Thank you. That's awesome. Yeah, I love it.
So you know what?
That's
This
such
is
a great
this-
time.
Faith and love restored.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. We can get this.
Yes,
right.
faith and love
Faith and love
restored.
restored.
Yes. Bring it back.
I keep trying to get my wife to do a show, and she's like, "What are we going to talk about?" I'm like,
Come on, the
"You have-
artist edition. You don't
We're
gotta
gonna-
deal
are
with
you
him.
kidding?
We're
I'm
gonna
like,
get
come
your
hang out
wife
with
and
us.
Crystal
Yeah, right.
on
Yeah.
here.
Hang out with a bunch of artists.
That's right.
It's
It's
a-
awesome.
I agree.
No joke. This is
We're so
where.
opinionated. There's not a whole lot of
Hey,
facts going on.
Remember, I said earlier in the show that my wife said the secret to a happy marriage was that she was forgiving.
Yeah.
Right. That's where this came from. I said you need to be on the
So you were
show.
listening.
I'm like, we did a single show. We need to have you on. I'm like, we could talk about. She goes,
doing
what
the
are we going
marriage
to talk
show
about?
right now.
I'm like, oh my gosh, we've been together for 24 years, we have a ton to talk about. She was like, I'm just very forgiving. That's why we work out.
And
So I'm going to steal a phrase from Steve here. I'm going to put a little bookend on this because I'm cutting it real close. We got a
bookend.
I don't know if y'all know.
Oh, man,
I've got to be at Casa Nueva at 7 o'clock to perform
yeah,
live tonight.
he's
FM
playing
1960 in Kirkendall. I'll be there.
Shameless plug.
All right.
It's 2 shameless plugs. Oh,
I'm working in there.
Let me get my contract out
So
here.
to answer the question you asked earlier, I didn't chime in on that yet. I will say that from the standpoint of what a relationship truly is intended to be for us, even if you're willing, to your point, I commend you for what you said earlier, Chris, about being willing to consider just even the possibility that God has a plan for your life. Because one of my favorite passages in the Bible, listen, one of my most favorite passages in the Bible was, and I'm not a Bible, like I can't do book and verse, but when he says, the guy says to Jesus, Lord, I do believe, but help me in my unbelief.
Thomas.
Right? I love that.
John.
Was that Thomas? That was one of those.
It was Thomas, and help me with my unbelief.
Because the point is, to answer your question, for a relationship to really flourish in the way God intended it to flourish, yes, marriage is necessary.
Okay.
It is necessary because it's everyone else is approaching relationships from what they can dip into the pot to take out for themselves. And if that's all you're looking for,
that's just gross
it's
to think
only going to
about.
go so far.
This is gross to think about, man.
It's a crazy. It's contrary to what the human mind normally thinks. You are happiest and most content when it's flowing out. It really is.
Yo,
it's
you
true.
get 10 times back.
There's
this before.
a beautiful analogy of
Mother Teresa's quote.
there's a beautiful analogy of the Dead Sea and the Sea of Galilee. And the Dead Sea, nothing can live in it, nothing survives, everything's dead. Sea of Galilee, to this day, for thousands of years, has fed millions of people. Right? They fish. It's a very vibrant sea. They're both fed by the same river, right? The Jordan. And there's one big distinguishing difference between the two. The Dead Sea, the Jordan River flows into it, and it has no outflow. And the Sea of Galilee, the Jordan flows into it, it flows out of it into the Dead Sea.
Pass
And
that on, man.
Giver and taker.
Yes.
Well,
If
and
you're
that
not
ties in beautifully.
if you're not giving out, you're already headed
Can't
to
receive.
Well, since
the
I
dying.
teased
Yeah.
that, let me give you the Mother Teresa quote. She said, and I'm paraphrasing because I'm horrible at remembering quotes verbatim, but she said, I find that when I give until it hurts, at the end of the giving, there's no more hurting, but only more love, and then I can give more.
Yeah.
Something to that effect.
Oh, yeah,
Right?
I've
That's
heard
brilliant.
It's
that.
amazing
It
stuff,
is,
you know?
yes.
So anyway,
All right.
rate the wine.
Yes.
We gotta go. I gotta go to the casa.
Yes.
I rated.
This we went longer than even normal,
This
and
was
we
fun.
still
love
didn't
this.
get all of it covered, and it was a blast. So
We're going to do episode 2 maybe.
I will tell you,
Yeah.
I have already seen 154 comments. I think this is going to be the most commented on show.
That's
Yep.
what I'm talking about. Thank you for tuning in.
Because
Awesome.
I will tell you, I'm going to be spending about 4 or 5 hours tomorrow just responding to comments, which means there's going to be 308 at least. So,
Joe, you're
yeah.
on your feet for the next month now.
Thank you guys. Right?
And Joe does a
No, he really
diligent
does.
job at responding to all your comments, so please keep them
I
coming.
do want to say really quick.
That's why I
Keep
don't
him
want
working.
you.
I do want to say, Joe just had a birthday, and I commented and I said happy birthday, and your response was the most. I
That
was
was
like,
awesome, I know.
like I didn't even know what to say.
Hey, artist
Guys,
edition. Me. Y'all ready? Come on, y'all ready? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to
Words of
you.
affirmation.
Happy birthday, dear Joe. Chomp, chomp, chomp. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday,
Thank
Joe.
you.
Bring on the show,
Yeah.
Joe.
Creator, moderator, Wine
Thank
No
you.
Wine Show, the host with the most, Wine.
Is he
Thank you.
I'm gonna
fun, though.
cry.
I get emotional.
Crying in wine show.
I cry at a drop of a hat, so I'm I'm sorry.
All
Hashtag man who cares.
That's right. We're gonna rate the wine. Finally,
Oh, it took forever.
today's wine.
We're not even drinking it anymore.
Pont
Gone.
de
Pont des Fuites. Yeah.
Fuite.
Pont de Fuite. Great Chardonnay French wine. from the Mediterranean coast of France.
running out of here.
And we're going
Silly
to
Americans.
rate it right quick. I'll have a picture and a rating tomorrow up on the page.
Ready?
Steve!
3.
I'm going my first ever 5. This was unbelievable. I have a white wine bias, and this was the first time that I couldn't come up with any reason not to rate a white wine 5. This was really delicious. Awesome.
I have to agree. It was. I have had 2 white wines, a Spanish Chenin Blanc called Bella Sol, and a Chardonnay from California, Pacific Coast Highway 1. Both of those utterly amazing. I like hard for me to pick. I will say this is my favorite of all of those. 5. It was really delicious. So sorry to bias. 3. Look at this weird, crazy
All
dynamic.
over the place.
I gave it 5.
Look
Get
at that!
out!
Love it.
Look at
Get
that!
out!
I had 2. Y'all had 1.
So it was only a 2.5, but then he gave it a 5.
That's not how much you
I like to
when
get
it's
mango
hot
though. I
tipsy.
mean, I ain't gonna lie.
It
I
was.
love mango.
Oh, I thought it was just really.
Great. I love it.
There was a lot of neat little flavors to me. Anyway, so that's the fun of wine. We tell everybody rate the wine honestly. Don't be biased by what other people are voting. 3s and 5s. 3s and 5s. So great mix of stuff, guys. Cue the music.
4.2.
Yes.
Average
Yay.
wine rating, 4.2.
4.2. Very solid wine. Very solid
Good
wine.
math.
I was
There,
just
bud.
I'll post.
Ashley did. I was just reading.
I'll post a picture. Yeah. No, I'm a genius math person. Yeah, that's how I did it. Guys, cue the music.
You've given me a 5-minute window. I gotta go. I'm gonna be late. My
Where's
own
the
show.
music?
I gotta go pee.
He's about to walk up out of this place.
I'm just chilling.
Yes.
He's like, I don't got no.
I'm just gonna be drinking. I'm gonna be drinking more
Awesome
after the show.
everybody.
Yes.
Awesome
Yes.
show.
Yes.
We're gonna
Good
do it again.
job.
Thanks for being a part of the show.
Thank you.
Love you guys. Love your comments. We really are trying to save America. Share it. Spread the word. Bring your friends. Thanks for being a part of the show.